A lot of people ask the question, how many hours a week do you work? For software engineering, honestly, that's a challenging question. I think it's challenging due to the fact that so much of software engineering is thinking and thinking through a problem in general that it kind of goes beyond like the 40 hours in a sense, right? So when you get a job, you sign up to do let's say 40 hours, right? That's your salary position or your contract or whatever it is. You agree to work X number of hours for the week and then out and call it a day. But the problem with software engineering is that it's such a mental job, right? Like a lot of times you'll be thinking about a problem kind of like subconsciously, you don't even realize it, and then something will just kind of like hit you, and then you'll be like, oh, I wonder if I can try that, or if I can maybe do this kind of code a certain way, maybe that'll give me the result I was thinking about. And honestly, a lot of times I found myself kind of in the evening when I have free time, honestly going back and trying things like on my personal laptop, just like in my own projects that kind of related to like a problem or something that I was working on at work. So like I'll experiment and prototype and stuff like that. And obviously my whole YouTube content, that's all me working on this at night, whenever I have time. But the thing I want to talk about is all the additional work that goes into software engineering, like staying up on technology, working on personal projects, reading, watching YouTube tutorials, whatever it is. I would include that as part of your work hours for the week, because that directly relates to your job and how well you do your job and how effective you are at being a software engineer. I would tack that onto those hours as well, because it's all related. It's not like you're going off and learning something that's completely unrelated to your job. If you're working on any kind of programming, it doesn't even matter what language it's in, it relates back to what you do for a living, because it just helps you grow and helps you maintain like the level at which you're at to be able to work and do your job. So for me, I don't know how I would answer that question, to be honest with you. My default is, you work for like, okay, I work 40 hours a week. Yeah, obviously that's like my job, right? But I put so many extra hours after the fact of like thinking or reading or working on side projects and stuff that has a positive benefit to my personal, like my professional job, because it helps me grow as an engineer. And I don't know how I would quantify that number. I don't think you can, because it's such a mental thing, like we just talked about. So when people ask like, oh, does software engineering require extra hours outside of working? Yes, I guess yes would be my answer to that. I don't know how else to look at it, because again, I think that if you're working in this field, then you must have some like innate interest in the topic. And I think as a side effect of having an innate interest in it is that you're probably going to research and do stuff on the side just to learn more about it, because there's so many things to learn, and I think it's impossible to learn all that in the confinement of 40 hours during the week when you have all your other daily responsibilities. Because software engineering, there's so much more that goes into it, aside from just programming, right? You have all the meetings, you have all the corporate stuff you have to do, you have all like the administrative stuff on top of your daily responsibilities of actual programming and system design and developing and stuff like that. So that may comprise like half of your job, right? Like the actual development work, and then the other half is taking care of, again, meetings, administrative stuff, all that. So that really doesn't leave you enough time to learn and grow in the technologies like that you may want to be like growing at the rate you want to be growing at. So that'll force you to have to put in extra time. But honestly, I don't really look at it like that. Like I'm just genuinely curious about a lot of the stuff. But if I was to answer somebody how many hours a week do I work, I would probably say more than 40, just due to the simple fact that I do a lot on my own time that directly contributes back to my personal job, by way of how effective I am. But that's the harder part to articulate when you go to talk to people who don't work in software engineering and who don't understand that. They just see it as like, oh, but you're not working, right? You're just like working on your side projects outside of work. How does that relate back to how many hours you work that week? I completely understand, and it's hard to think about it that way, but it's like doing math. You know, it's like if I do a bunch of math problems at night, you know, that's going to help me on my test the next day or my job, whatever, because I've put in the extra time to get this concept down, you know. Or it's like running. If I put in all the extra hours running, if I go and run 5 miles every night for a couple months, I'm going to be very well conditioned for what I've been training for, you know, down the road for the race or whatever it is. But, and so I guess I would look at it as like, you could maybe word it as like professional training that you're putting in after work. But again, I would still funnel that into how many hours you worked, because it's such a mental job. And the more languages and the more technologies that you learn, the better of an engineer you're going to become. And honestly, I've found that the more obscure books that I've read, like I read one book about Elixir. Like, am I ever going to use Elixir professionally as a language? Probably not, but I'm not sure. But it was me reading Elixir that got me interested in learning Rust, because I had read a reference of Rust in that book, and then I had read something about programming that I thought was neat, just from this obscure book that I never thought I was going to do anything with. And again, I think what I'm trying to say is I would not I would genuinely count, if someone asks you how many hours do you work a week, I would include that time. I really would. And if you're interested in getting into this field, you know, I would say that you should, in some degree, be prepared to continue researching and studying after work just to help you out. And I would say that if you don't like to do that, you can get by just fine, but you may not advance as quickly as if you did that. But I guess maybe that's true for every job. I don't know. But so I would say it's near impossible to quantify hours. I don't know how to put a number on it. But if you love the work and you love the topic, you know, and what you're building, you're not gonna really care, right? You're just gonna be like so interested in what it is because you see the potential of what you can do with it, right? I think that's really the power of this field and software engineering in general, is like how much potential there is to really do anything you want. And it's up to you. It's like, oh, I can read this one book about databases and I could completely change my whole career path. Or I could read about AWS and learn about cloud development and I can completely change to something else. Like, it's completely up to you. And that's the craziest part, is like you can go to the library for free and get any book you want and change your life. I mean, that gets me excited. I love talking about that because it's so true. Like, I can go and pick up 10 books in the library that would have cost me like hundreds of dollars, but I get them for free at the library, and I can learn any skill I want to and then directly apply it back to my professional job. I mean, I don't know how many other jobs you can do that with, but programming is so like unique in that sense because you have that possibility to do that. And it gets me, I don't know, it gets me real excited about it because it's entirely my responsibility to make that happen, and I'm gonna do that. Like, and I hope that this, like, I hope that like this channel can be used as a way to articulate that point. If you can do anything you want, and you know, we just have to learn and study, and I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself, but anyway, so thank you all for watching, and thank you all for the response on that last video. I really was not expecting that level of engagement. I really appreciate all the views and all the comments. So I'm going to read through all those, and again, yeah, I really appreciate it. So thank you. Yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.